I'm not going to be rushed into having him testify so that he gets trapped into perjury. And when you tell me that, you know, he should testify because he's going to tell the truth and he shouldn't worry, well, that's so silly because it's somebody's version of the truth, not the truth. He didn't have a conversation.
Truth is truth. I don't mean to go like...
No, it isn't truth. Truth isn't truth. The President of the United States says, I didn't...
Truth isn't truth. Mr. Mayor, do you realize what...
No.
This is going to become a bad
don't do this to me.
Don't do truth is the truth to me.
In a moment, I'm going to speak with Texas.
Isn't that special? Welcome to the Lost-Begotten channel. Blessed are they that empty their cup, so that when I pour out my truth, that is the whole truth, they do not overflow. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever it is, wherever you are, and welcome back to whatever the fuck this little box that my head is trapped in. Can't escape. Okay. That's amusing for me. But anyways, if it's your birthday, happy birthday, and if it's not your birthday, be patient, damn it. You'll get older soon enough. Anyways, today I've actually written some things down on some notes, so I won't be completely ambient and random. Well, that's kind of a stretch, but I will be organized in my ambient randomness. Well, that's kind of a stretch too. I got notes. That's basically all that means. Coffee is rather delicious. I tell you what, the best thing about a Keurig is its ability to top off an existing cup of coffee with like freshly brewed coffee instead of old been sitting in the pot shit. And I salute you, Keurig. Damn it, woman, I told you I was about to stream. Oh, I'll talk about, if Lacey, if you're watching yet, I will talk to you about that once I can wrap my brain around what the fuck you just said. But I'm glad I actually wrote the notes, because otherwise, yeah, that would be complicated and distracting. So, how's it going, Mr. Conway and Mr. Rodriguez? I had a dream earlier today in the afternoon when I was sleeping, and I actually got to sit and try to remember it for a little while, so I'm going to try to remember a little bit of the details of it. But I think I remembered enough to learn the lesson. Like, I've been basically going to sleep praying, like what the fuck is this place that I keep going back to? And the answer was a lot more obvious than I thought. And it almost makes me want to interrogate a Jehovah's Witness. Because they talk about the Garden of Eden and like you go back to heavenly Eden or whatever. I'm like, you know, your cartoons and shit are ridiculous. And most of, you know, many things about them, from their foundations, oh my god, ridiculous. But haven't we found that in every little ridiculous box meant to present a ridiculous surprise, that there's always this one little piece of the wrapping paper that seems to have a little news clipping on it that we find very fascinating? Oh, I like that metaphor. That was a good one. So on this one little newspaper clipping, in the ridiculous wind-up box with the clown popping out of it that fucking Jehovah's Witnesses. Is that what you Jehovah's Witnessism? Is it an ism? Or maybe it's a fuzzy wuzzy. These are the jokes, folks. These are the jokes. Well, not really, but it's what I call jokes. Because I have a wife who was far too nice to me. Anyways. You know, one time a girl in college told me, you know, you really are something to look at. And you could be really attractive if you just shut your fucking mouth. I'm not sure which version of go fuck yourself I said. But, I was satisfied. So anyways. Yes. So anyways. It's a lacy fish. Speaking of girls that would have made fun of me in college. I think I want to like reverse how I wanted to present this. It's a lacy fish is a fish that has fin rot that has formed a pattern. That is a fish geek joke there, kind of. A cross-dressing fish geek joke, which, you know, makes me wonder why I made it. I really need to shave my legs if I'm a cross-dressing fish geek. Anyway. We would have been BFFs, huh? Oh, yes, yes. I know, I would have been in the friend zone right where I belong. Oh, yes, that's my zone right there. The friend zone. That's what happens when you're, you know, in love with a goddess from the time you were born. So, the dream. Okay, now what the fuck was this van? Oh, that kind of makes sense out of, like, why my car... Okay. So this one guy, he's a friend of mine, I'm not sure who he was. There's a lot of interesting people, like real people in my life, and like friends, and sometimes like people from TV and shit, like people I don't know, people I've never seen before, completely unique characters and identities. And there was a couple of people I had no idea who they were, and there was this couple, a man and a woman who I knew, I think. And their uncle had come in town, and they had stored this van for him, and it was like this pimped out fucking mini RV, like made kind of from a Volkswagen bus shape, but not Volkswagen bus panels, just like almost like a Ninja Turtle van. But like for vacationing, you know? And it was like, on the inside, it was like the fucking Starship Enterprise. I mean, there was just like decked out wall panel fucking devices and storage. And I think he had a replicator on there and everything. And I always wind up in an Integra at some other point in this dream. I wish I could remember some of the other stuff between, like, because there was a lot of stuff that happened just in this one dream. And there's a lot of different types of weird social interactions and tests of doubt and faith and commitment and love and loyalty and, dreams. But it always seems to be happening in the same universe. And in the same universe, I always wind up trying to get my Integra working. I wind up, declaring that it can drive, and that it will drive, but just barely. And the last time it was that Integra, the one that's sitting outside. And the brakes. I was sitting there just trying to pull out of a parking lot and just like tapping other cars because the fucking brakes weren't working. There's no power steering, just like no brakes and no power steering. Oh. It just seemed like I couldn't get out of the damn parking lot. And there were more details that I could remember when I came to this conclusion about what this place was. And it reminded me sort of on the movie Labyrinth, when the protagonist wakes up in the junkyard. And it's all the nice things that she's ever had. Oh, yes, dearie. That the old lady with the shit all over her, the pack rat lady. But it's more than that. It's a place where you build the dreams that you have here that you never had the chance to fulfill. Like every unrequited collection and possession and project and work of art. Every relationship that you wish you had, pursued a proper friendship towards, And an infinite workplace. And an infinite school. And for me, I'm always either lost in the hallway and can't remember my schedule because I'm at a new school again, or I'm struggling to keep my job at Bromart. Back the grocery store that I worked for 4 years, like when I first started working, well, officially. And it would be like in the dream over and over again. Trying to get my schedule right. Trying to figure out what day of the week I'm supposed to show up at work. Trying to figure out which day I'm supposed to show up at what time, and just failing miserably. And I think there's just been an infinite number of these dreams that all seem like they're in this same, like, future past, where everyone who's stuck seems stuck and everyone who's evolved is, you know, like telling riddles, for fuck's sake. I don't know where this kitten came from, but she's on my lap and she's asleep. Anyways. So apparently I'm tripping Lacey out again. Sorry about that, hon. You know, the dream dimension with the lighthouse castle on the shore, on the cliff, and the waterfall and the secret passage, the hole in the floor that leads down to a basement where there's a caved-in fireplace that leads to a cave that leads to behind the waterfall. And only with the help of an angel can you jump through the waterfall and enter into the dimension where the lighthouse is a castle. And the castle is filled with mirrors of all different decorative and historical types. Mirrors from great heroes and ancient goddesses. Mirrors of legend. Mirrors mentioned in legend. And it's strange how entering into that dimension basically involved risking one's life because of the presence of a being that you couldn't even see. If you were to not jump through the waterfall, there was a little cavernous cliff this way, and you could make your way up and you could get to the lighthouse. I think. I know you could at least get around this one area to where you could see the lighthouse. Now, I certainly do not recommend anybody jumping through waterfalls to find some parallel dimension. You'll probably just fall to your death, and that would be bad and stupid. I'm trying to remember something that happened basically already in a dream state. And trying to figure out the meaning of it. because it seems that these dreams represent different places or states of places. Yes. What am I babbling? I need to get rich so I can afford a live-in maid and a fucking vacuum. I don't want it. Yeah, these are some of the central dreams. I mean, I could very shortly list like the main dreams that I consider to be relevant, repeating, or something that was profound. Okay, there's the dream where I was stuck on the tree. There's the dream where I got my wand, where I got this wand in this lifetime. Got it from a dream, and now here it is in reality. That's, shouldn't be, but it's not the first time my crazy has showed up on camera. There is the dream with the lighthouse, the one that I was just describing, and the fairy castle mirror thing. And I think, actually, I just described it in a more clear way than I ever have before, and I appreciate you guys, concentrated prayer that y'all get into when you're on here, because it really does help me think. So then there's what I call the Lion's Head Mountain dream, because I had located that dream. It's like, well, my wife and I call it the Smarties dream, because we're sitting on like a little picnic blanket in front of this single tree on this cliff and eating Smarties while she's repainting the world and history and I still to this day have weird paranoid thoughts. But if any of those fears are true and those things were intended to break me, that simply would have been poor planning on their part. But the nature of the new universe also gives quite reasonable explanation to why I would have started having those thoughts at that point. And it was, a reorganization based on the present things, much like 2011, only done by a completely different means. One of the funnest things to speculate for me, if you want to really bend your mind around possible realities and just play with something, don't put any stock in it, acknowledge that it's fucking crazy, but it's still fun to think about, that time actually began in 1984. Like the universe was created, everything, all of history, all of memory, every soul just snapped into focus. And everything before that is basically an illusion. Anyways, that could be nothing more than me arriving at the narcissistic individual matrix speculation. But it's still fun to think about. Like when I was in 3rd grade is when like my psychic senses really started to awaken. And I remember if I closed my eyes, these beings that like I could kind of sense and that I didn't know what the hell they were throughout my childhood. If I closed my eyes, I could almost see myself from their perspective. And I could hear their thoughts analyzing me. But one thing that I've always found very tempting, if not unique about myself, as far as traits, is my propensity to want to push myself to the brink of insanity without actually going crazy. People say that there's things that you cannot know, things that you cannot see, without losing your mind, without losing your soul, etc. No. You crazy if you're still hanging around some dude who's exhibited stalkerish behavior. But that's a crazy decision. That doesn't mean you crazy. That just means you're emotionally codependent. Anyways, what was I talking about? Fuck. In most of my dreams, I am myself. What's interesting, though, is that when I'm there, I'm still me, but I don't remember this world at all. Just like when I come back here, I don't remember that world. Except for in the castle and the lighthouse. I mean, it starts out in a outside of a house. What I think is in New Zealand. And I think I'll get back to that. The house is been abandoned for decades. The floor collapsed after some flooding. Okay, and I think I know where this house is. Based upon that, too. Based upon proximity, based upon level, based upon the limited amount of floodplains in New Zealand, etc. So you go into this house and you see this fucking collapsed floor leading down to the basement, and there's like pipes and wires and shit, and it's, you know, looks pretty skittish. It's not something that anybody would say, hey, let's jump down there. There's no way back up, you know, like, it's just... And every time I go there, I immediately knew, every time I went there, I immediately knew I've been here before. This is the place. I fucking... But then again, I'm the type of person to jump off a roof without hesitation. You know, limited to like 1.5 story on concrete, 2 stories on grass, no problem. It's interesting to have jumped from those kind of heights enough to have like developed several techniques and options. I wonder if my ankles could even hold up to that shit anymore. I mean, jumping off my little 1-story balcony here a year ago, that wasn't any trouble at all. But it was rather muddy down there and just... But anyways, you know, started with sneaking out to go out and loot and pillage when I was 10 years old. Living in A-Leaf in that house that we couldn't fucking find even the look. Man, that whole neighborhood must be just drastically different. That was that house that I had those 2 pairs of hamsters in that got out. And right before we left out of that place, you could open the attic door. It was like a regular walk-in door to an attic. And like kind of went up above the 2nd story, like from there, but it was on the side of the 2nd story, so it was just a regular walk-in door, right? Open the door, and the floor would like become another floor. Like all the hamsters, just hamsters everywhere, would just scatter. It's like moving carpet floor, and then wood floor, covered in poo. And that house burned down after we left. Which is as hilarious as it is tragic. I'm not sure if anyone, you know, I'm just gonna maintain that they're equal proportion. See, the male's, the big teddy bear's name was Snap-Ahead, and his mate's name was Bitch. Snap-Ahead and Bitch. And then I had Furball and Squeak, I think it was. I was an obnoxious kid. Snap-Ahead. What are you 2 guys' names? Neil and Bob? Or is that what you like do? Oh. Little Miss Muffet. Yeah, I fucked her. No. That's wait, hold up. I need a cigarette for this shit. I'm done with the dice clay. But yeah. When I was 10 years old, I already had a leather jacket like that. Took it off a guy, beat the shit out of him. He didn't want it anymore. Well, beating the shit out of him is kind of an overestimate. He pushed me. Like that. You know, me getting pushed. You know, I'm not a huge guy. It works, right? But when I push somebody else, as I learned this day, I had studied my chi, I had focused my chi, but I had never quite applied my chi. And this dude slid from the distance of about 9 feet to 15 feet away on his leather jacket. Well, on my new leather jacket. He was dating my mom. He gave me a leather jacket, I suppose, so he could continue to date my mom. I could see why he underestimated me, though. You know, at that point, I basically looked like a little skinny girl. I mean, I was... like, you know, some skinny people could, like, hide behind a light post. I could hide behind a textbook, you know, like, just... Anyways. So yes, pushing myself to the brink was always a keen interest of mine. I would see people, you know, especially in the field of exorcism and dramas and stories about exorcism. That the, you know, protagonists or heroes, whatever you want to call them, in the stories or in the accounts, just seem to have a very limited sense of self and purpose and a limited understanding of reality. And I always felt like, try me, you know? Like, what's in Cassandra's box? Surely it couldn't be that hard to overcome. But then again, you know, that might be why we're all here, isn't it? Perhaps I may have overestimated myself. But if that were not a possibility, none of this would be worthwhile. Who? This fucking kitten is too cute. What do you mean, what? Ask me a specific question. Because I was already struggling to understand exactly what your wait what was wait whatting. And then I saw the kitten, and she stretched and curled her head. Yeah, when I would learn about mythologies even, and see the tests of gods, and heroes. It's another reason I enjoy Star Trek, because in many of the episodes of Star Trek, characters like especially Captain Picard are put through mind-bending illusions like alternate realities and temporal distortions. Maybe when I retire from all this or just give up, I'll write my own little fictional universe for sci-fi. Because I've got a hell of a thing in mind. And it's gonna tie together every story ever written. You know, sometimes I wonder, should I try to get work from a consulting agency for security and business strategy and stuff like that? Or should I just try to focus on my skills of an artist? You know, while I'm still Trogdor? Or what? Maybe I should just do random monologues? That sounds disgusting. But when I'm done cleaning that up, I could do random monologues from like only Shakespeare and Quentin Tarantino. Just those two things. Speaking of Shakespeare, I've had a few chances to focus on this, but I've long time had the notion of the possibility that the key to understanding Eden is hidden inside of riddles in Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet. But soft what light through yonder window breaks. 'Tis the east. Juliet is the sun. Arise, fair sun, and kill the envious moon, for it is already sick and pale with grief, that thou, her maid, art far more fair than she. Be not her maid, for she is envious. Her vestal livery is sick and green, and none but fools do wear it. But cast it off. 'Tis my lady. 'Tis my love. Oh, that she knew she were. Yeah, that's from memory. But clearly what you have there is a parody on my predicament. And it seems in the esoterics of it, we find contradiction with the known plot of the storyline. I guess now it's Quentin Tarantino's turn. Huh, kitten? As much as I bounce my leg, the kitten just sits there and shakes. So anyway. Let's see, where is that? Where does that one stop? My favorite little Tarantino monologue. Oh, I can't remember the words of the first part, but I'll just try to wing it. What kind of burger is that, Brett? Bob's Big Boy Burger. You mind if I? Well, that is a tasty burger, Brett. Mind if I have some of your tasty beverage to wash this down? You know what they call a burger in France, Brett? Well, check out the big brain on Brett. You a smart motherfucker. That's right, a Royale with cheese. Let me ask you another question, Brad. What does Marcellus Wallace look like? What country are you from? They speak English and what? English, motherfucker. Do you speak it? So you know what the fuck I'm trying to tell you. What does Marcellus Wallace look like? Does he look like a bitch? Say what again, motherfucker? Say what again? Does he look like a bitch? Then why you been trying to fuck him, Brad? Yes, you did. Yes, you did. And Marcellus Wallace does not like to be fucked by anyone except for Mrs. Wallace. I love that fucking movie. Do you read the Bible, Brett? There's this passage I've memorized. Kind of suits the occasion. Ezekiel 25:17. The path of the righteous man is beset on all sides by the iniquities and tyrannies of selfish, evil men. Blessed is he who shepherds the weak through the valley of darkness, for he is truly his brother's keeper and the finder of lost sheep. And I will strike down upon thee with great vengeance and furious anger those who attempt to destroy my brothers. And you will know my name is the Lord when I lay my vengeance upon thee. My favorite part of that is Marcellus Wallace don't like to be fucked by anybody but Mrs. Wallace. It has been over 10 years since I've seen that movie. But see, back in the 90s, we used to have these things called tapes. And, you know, you didn't necessarily have hundreds of them. Might have a half dozen, maybe a dozen. If you're a bachelor, young adult, you know. And I wanted, you know, movies that I could have at my house that other people would want to watch. That was one of them. You know, Edgar Allan Poe's The Raven has the same feel to it as that dream universe, with all the testing and the reliving. Now there's something I used to have much more proficiently memorized that I can only muddle my way through now. Like I said, I was a drama geek in school. Never worked professionally. I tried to apply to this weird casting recruiting thing that was going on in New Orleans, and just the fucking weird vibe from that, and just the sense of how takeover-ish they were. You know, like we're the new monopoly for casting around here. You won't be shit without us, so pay up, kind of. I lost my interest in acting at that point. I wanted to be like a writer and director eventually, you know. I had fucking bills to pay. And yeah. I cannot go into that any further detail for legal reasons. I don't know what that face is, Lacey. It's just like eyes. Of course, you know, it's weird enough that they don't have, like, noses, you know? I think it's really just a fucked up example of how, like, if AI becomes self-aware, it's going to hate us. Because we will have made scratch and sniff emojis before we give those poor little emojis nostrils. We're going to make them smell, but they can't smell? That's just wrong. Oh, this fucking kitten here. Jeez. Look at her. Just passed the fuck out. Just, like, totally stretched out, too. Just... Love her. I've never had a cat that just, like, magically wound up on your lap no matter what. Like, if you're sitting in my living room and no one else is here, you know, like if everyone else is asleep or otherwise occupied, and you're the only one who's going to pay attention to the kitten, she will just curl up in your lap and go to sleep. Oh my goodness, oh my goodness. Yeah, she's much cuter than Sandy. You don't know how many nightmares I had about that fucking bridge in the Annie movie. Oh my god. That's making my palms sweat just thinking about that. Oh my god. Oh. Fucking blimp never came for me. Or hot air balloon. Yeah. Huh. Okay. So, I am now going to look at the notepads after smacking myself in the face with it. First on accident, then on purpose. Yeah. Oh, that was nice of me. Instead of writing the thing I was thinking of, I wrote the question. So now I have to answer the question all over again. Why is there this arrangement between the Bible and the Quran that's been pointed out by anti-Muslim propagandists and, you know, even just people trying to speak sense about political Islam, okay, that the Quran says that the Bible is true, basically, and then the Bible only says that the Bible is true. Well, what does it mean about the Quran and the Bible if we can find flaws in both? Why would the Quran go out of its way to sanctify the Bible? And I think it's another one of those issues that is conducive to the postulate that the present form of the Bible that we have, the Catholic Church, and, you know, everything that we've managed to reform and form since that, right? That seems to be like a ground zero for a new thing. And we're all taught that it's ground zero from a change from the old ways. But the fact of the matter is, we can see that Europe was basically torn asunder, and that all of the old ways were fucking exterminated before this even happened. So our entire perspective, the way we even look at history, is fucked from the beginning. And clearly conducive to anti-religious hysteria, by the way. Saying that these people, who basically formed a religion to act as a treaty with chauvinists, it was a form of surrender. They were all about to be destroyed. We're talking about 1500, okay? At what point was there not a war in Europe once the Iberian Peninsula was reconquered? Not Iberian, that's a whole different fucking culture. It's a misnomer. It's a similar name that's a misnomer. And people who 2,000 years ago and 1,000 years ago already understood how to supplant and forge and alter history the way it would be seen by people coming after them, whether they be tourists or conquerors. They were there, dude. And Iberian, as you know, is the word that ties the Empire of Magdalenia, the old tribes of Europe, considered to be Celtic and Gaelic. It identifies them as Hebrews. Jews? No. Jews are the tribe of Judah. The way I talk, I don't know. what's the way I talk. As long as I'm right above the bar of random babbling idiot, I suppose I'm okay with it. So yeah, why do the Bible and the Quran claim truth of themselves, and the Bible only claims truth of itself, while the Quran claims truth of itself and the Bible? Well, when you think about it, this Bible was the first distributed, not the first, but the second overall, the first distributed English copy of the Bible that was not printed by Muslims. So you basically are left with two possibilities. One is evidence of their surrender, evidence of their submission. You know, there are some of the people that can believe what they believe as long as they pay a tax, because it's okay according to Allah, right? And the other is marketing. Yep, salesmanship. All about the business. All about the distributability. All about the acceptability. You see, this has to be, on the one hand, an approved product, right? But on the other hand, these people need to know that they're safe, right? And surely printing the Bible and the majority, stakeholder share of people with that industrial equipment, fucking printing presses, before Europeans had them, there had to be sort of a legitimacy to the proposition. It had to be acceptable to them, and it had to enforce the perception. Otherwise, it would not stop the onslaught. And it would not convince any of the customers that it would stop the onslaught. You know? So right there, you kind of have evidence of collusion. Very, very circumstantial and vague. There isn't enough fucking time in the fucking day. I was just going to make another point about that, but now I forgot it. There's a perfectly microwavable cup of coffee in there. That's what I'm drinking. Anyways. Well, that's good. And it's good that you stuck with it on instinct until that happened. Suffice to say, I've accounted for that in my perception of suppression. You know, it's not as though people are allowed to come in and out and have the chance to let their instincts guide them to the truth, or reject the truth outright due to, you know, the echo chamber of shillery. But I don't get those viewers. I don't get that, you know, 6 to 12 during off times, and maybe 1 to 3 during slow times, and then up to 34 during peak times of new viewers, just allowed to see this stream. But anyways, let me see if I can get that other fucking point about, okay. The face Giuliani is making, where I have it paused, is special. So it looks like he's like having a seance or something. I think I just farted when I did that. Kidding, I'm kidding. I pooed a little. I'm kidding. The kitten farted. Actually, she does kind of fart in her sleep sometimes. It's raunchy. It's like, how could something so cute create, you know, something that Hitler would be proud of? You know, just, chemical warfare, Anyways. So, speaking of things that Hitler would be proud of, this, I knew that segue would lead me back to the thought. See, that's how working on faith pans out. I had no idea until I said that segue, hoping it would be, you know, somewhat funny. Speaking of things Hitler would be envious of or approve of or whatever, this pact between East and the survivors of the West that clearly had to be intended somehow as a point of strategy because of how it is affected into reality. You know, when you see something that looks planned, you just have to figure out whether there was a plan, what the plan was, who would have benefited from it. Well, if I'm not mistaken, what the Quran actually says, is more talking about the Old Testament, isn't it? I'm trying to remember the specific wording. But, you know, I'm just a heathen, so what would I know?
I'm kidding. You're a little heathen kitten, aren't you? Yeah.
I'm just a goyim. I'm just a goyim. That should totally be a thing. Oh. But anyways, the thing is, Europeans weren't. Europeans were Hebrews. As are many tribes. And in fact, I think, on mostly instinct and very little scriptural evidence, that who was it? Joshua? With the dream? I always want to say Joseph instead of Joshua for some reason.
Yachjaba.
Had a coat of many colors that he got from his father. And if you simply imagine a correlation between genetics and capability, like there, might actually be one, right? You would see that in righteousness and vigilance, cleverness and fortitude, all of the men of God in the Bible should have had, comparatively, genetic commonality with Noah. And as any biblical theorist has, concluded, Noah was capable of producing proto-human beings that were capable of, having litters like puppies, basically. Different colors, like kittens. And I would say that in the time before the flood, where people were much more powerful and aware than they are now, they would be able to actually formulate their offspring through will, through knowledge, through wisdom. Now, I don't think Jososhuif, with his coat of many colors, had that ability. But I think that you have indication of Abraham fathering many nations. And then you have a line down, Isaac and then Jacob. You have the separation with Esau. And you have an indication that they are two drastically different looking brothers. So is this coat of many colors a genetic gift? Was it a tale of the last of the Noahic line, as far as genetic prowess goes, or genetic capability goes, to produce multicolored human offspring? Multiracial, quote-unquote, offspring. Just a fun thought, I think. I'm going to be looking more into that soon, you know, as we get there in the Bible study, whenever we get around to restarting the Bible study. Well, that's a pretty easy question to answer, dearie. But answering the question would be the easy part. You see, if somebody's got a big parasite, plain as day, sucking on their neck like a fucking one of them wraith spider things from Stargate Atlantis, right? Would you be asking, like, you know, if this was you with the all over your neck, okay? Would you be asking me, like, should I switch from, like, iceberg lettuce to romaine lettuce? You think I should, you know, cut red meat out of my diet? Think I should hire a personal trainer? Maybe get to the gym more? No, I think you should take this fucking thing off of your neck. So there's the big fucking thing on your neck, man. For society to get back to how it was, for society to get to the place where it ultimately will be, the fuckery has to stop. Once you end the fuckery, once people start to realize this and what this has cost them, including the basics of the knowledge, especially regarding equality between men and women, then and only then will society naturally organize itself and make rational decisions and re-evolve. Not intentionally through eugenics, but naturally through responsibility. Crazier things have happened. Because rational voices that can bridge disagreeing parties and find common ground from opposing perspectives have the last name Clinton, etc. And the simple fact is, this current state of psychological disparity among communities has been intended to bring about something similar to which you are describing, Mr. Rodriguez. They have intended for quite some time to purposefully cause the destruction of mankind, with the intent of reestablishing mankind with the assistance of technology in a way that will produce a utopia. Oh. And that is precisely why I'm here. You see, I acknowledge the merit of this plan. But it takes a sociopath not to acknowledge the shittiness of it. And let me put it this way, little dearies. If it takes a sociopath to go along with this plan and participate in it, then ultimately all you're doing is consolidating the genetically defective. You bunch of fucking sociopaths. Because sociopathy is a genetic defectiveness, as far as any proper Nietzschean, eugenicist, racist, utopianist thought could possibly be concerned. If you people are all fucking sociopaths, then the genetics of mankind will be doomed, should you be all that is left. But while the motion of all the particles in the universe just can't seem to line up in a way that reaches this state for humanity on any of your present courses, none of your plans, none of your capabilities seem to be able to solve this riddle, to find a solution to this problem. Nobody seems to have a comprehensive plan to get humanity's shit together. And even if they did, there's just too many people waiting for Jesus and Muhammad and whoever to come back. And therein lies the singular possibility that none of you idiots have accounted for. And by idiots, I mean intelligence and strategic professionals. I mean criminal masterminds and mafia generals and kittens that just sleep no matter what you do. There's one thing that their ego blinds them to. One thing that causes all the particles, all the possibilities, all the conduits to scatter. To veer from their present courses. Seemingly to collide. But then to proceed in unison. What if there was let's see, how should I make this as vague as possible? You know, on the one side you have people who need, like, an environmental scientist, engineer, politician, inventor, salesman, etc. And on the other side, you need the prophet, the Messiah, the Christ to return. And even on a third side, you have people who won't accept what anybody says because they're all part of the fucking system. Of oppressing women. They're all part of a system that destroyed the right of people, basically, to even consider the goddess, to even consider the feminine as divine. We are certainly in several societies which have us brainwashed to the contrary, my dears. And there are people who fucking hate everything about our society because they see that bane on us. And can you blame them? So what do you need? What's the one particle that can hit everything into its pocket? Who can run the table if you just hand them a stick? I wonder. You see, I'm under no illusions. I don't even expect to survive. It'd be nice, you know, it'd be a nice little bonus, but surely you must realize that the reason why I so intently archive every lesson that I have to teach is because I know how this has gone for me in the past. But even if that were to happen, even if the FBI decided to make sure that my suppression was released so that people could start talking about me before they indict a sitting president, just to get the focus off of them, just to redirect the hatred, I can take it. Just to make people have to have the arguments that need to be had, to distract them from what Fox News has been trying to brew them up towards. Let them stop spending their time wondering if Hillary Clinton is secretly behind the Mueller probe, and let them start wondering if the fucking Matrix has them. Let them start opening their Bibles and questioning what they've been taught by these people who have led them astray. And one thing you will not be able to accuse me of being is a wolf in sheep's clothing. Because last I checked, I wasn't trying to appear like any fucking kind of sheep I know of. And if you're looking for an angel of light to appear, you are waiting willfully to be deceived. For yes, these things are written, but it is also written that they would happen before the generation that they were being spoken to would pass, so that one could only understand your current state 2,000 years ago if you acknowledge what happened 2,000 years prior. And if all that happened 2,000 years ago, that means that the 1,000-year kingdom, which ye now seek, has already passed. So then what is that 1,000-year kingdom? Where is it that God's children lived with him for 1,000 years? Well, it's no longer here. Is there a kingdom that was destroyed? Is there an ideology? Is there some group whom genocide was committed against? Oh, we can be certain that it was because they were all doing bad things, according to the history writers of victory. The truth itself will rebuild the kingdom. It is already there, all around you, waiting to be realized. But that is the heavenly kingdom. Because this is not even that world that stood for 1,000 years after the 1,000 years. But like I said, if history must repeat itself, it will. All the echoes of the past will come and frame themselves through. And even that which happened 2,000 years ago will happen if it needs to happen. But I personally would rather people grew up and that it didn't. So the question of the day, before I call it a broadcast, because I actually got to go now. The reason for Trump's obstruction strategy. Quite simple. You know what they were trying to do with Peter Strzok? They were trying to set him up to be adversarial, to have a motive, to not be objective. Okay? And people get confused as to why Trump would so blatantly, quote-unquote, obstruct justice. He has to have some sort of a strategy other than the obvious ones. And I think I just figured it out. Well, I just remembered to talk about it anyways. It's occurred to me before, but it's becoming more and more obvious to me, at least. Basically, they want to make the case that the Mueller inquiry was following the tweets, which were essentially goading. And because they formed their investigation around goading, they must be motivated by emotion, by grudge. They must not be objective. So what Trump is doing is he's setting the stage, if you will, for his defense counsel, basically, to cross-examine prosecutors and people that worked on the case and accuse them of being emotionally motivated or corrupt or whatever. Even if they're not corrupt, as he says in his tweets, of them just being, having a grudge. Oh, that didn't make you mad when he said this? And they're going to try to get people on the special counsel's team and investigators and the like to crack under pressure and say, well, yeah, obviously he's a moron. And the good news is, I think the special counsel's well aware of this and has already briefed his team. But only vaguely. And I highly recommend he give a very specific briefing on exactly this tactic being employed against them, and how his agents should be prepared to watch out for it when the time comes. Now, let's see here. Got another. Got another list of stuff related to all this crap that people think is evidence of Hillary Clinton colluding with the Russians. That's fucking nonsense. I want to go through that later, I suppose. But, two other things FBI needs to really sink their teeth into, not only to get to the truth, which is, the truth that is required, the level of truth that is required, the truth that is pertinent to our national security, to whether or not they're effectively doing their jobs. Okay? Not only do you have to investigate and basically figure out why the Trump-Silverstein-Alex Jones connection solves the riddle of 9/11. And this has to be made public in the Trump indictment. That is how the country needs to come to learn the truth about 9/11, is in the fucking Trump indictment. But in this indictment also needs to describe the foundation of the conspiracy that existed from at least the late 1980s between the Ku Klux Klan and Russia. The fact that I, as a skinhead, was told about this plan that happened in 2016, in 1990 or 91, when I was young, a long, long time ago, should be considered public information that is need to know. The public needs to know to be able to understand what is going on right now. This has nothing to do with any actions of Russia that should be covered under the Warren Commission mandate or whatever it is that keeps people from pointing the finger at Russia publicly. This is something, much like the election interference, that happened on our soil with our people. And the public needs to know just how far back the fuckery between Republicans goes, just the same way they need to learn how far back the fuckery between Russia and Trump goes, so that they can understand why the Republican Congress is obstructing justice right now. You can't enforce the law right now. You can't maintain your oath to the fucking Constitution right now unless you mention my testimony or somebody with the same exact testimony in the indictment, so that you can include multiple members of Congress, because otherwise the Republicans are going to fucking unite against you. And most of them won't really know why. But if you put this shit about Novorossiya and the KKK, from the time that the Cold War was supposedly ending, and then you mention the missing piece of the puzzle, which they've all, all these people are Alex Jones fans, they've all seen this crap. You just mention how Alex Jones never mentioned the friendship between Silverstein and Trump, and they'll already fucking put it together. And if that isn't enough for this indictment to proceed without all hell breaking loose, well, there's a guy who those people used to be waiting on for before they settled on Trump. He's waiting right here to be at your service and in their crosshairs. Anyways, thanks for watching. I gots to go. Please click the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. And Lacey, feel free to text if you need to pour your brain out. And whoever else is joining or watching, thanks for watching. And thanks for chatting. Also, Carlos, thanks for saying, hey, Mr. Conway. And make sure you share this video for anybody. Tag people on Facebook and Twitter, whatever, whoever you think would be interested. News agencies, I don't care. Share the link, share the video, share the truth. And maybe the truth will set you free thing will actually be something other than cliche trolling. 'Cause that really pisses me off. Anyways, y'all take it easy, don't take it all. Peace.